But first, we want to shake things up. Scientists at Cal State Fullerton are involved in a research project to better understand how the next big earthquake will affect Southern California.
And as reporter David Nazar explains, the epicenter of the study is in Southern California, but the trio of professors are traveling the world to gather their findings.
You might call them the three amigos minus the horse and saddle. This triumvirate from Cal State Fullerton is in town trying to save lives. Beno Tawari is a civil engineer. David Bowman is an earthquake physicist, and Greg Childers is an expert in atomic physics and nuclear power. This specialized team is part of a CSUF program dubbed Earthquake Watch 2011. They're studying everything from earthquakes and fault lines to soil conditions and landslides. And part of that research begins right here at the university's Geotech Lab. Professor Tawari, with the help from his students, is analyzing and testing the strength of sand, clay, and silt, and how the sediments of Mother Nature will fare in a big earthquake.
You know, if you construct a building or anything on ground, the important thing is whether the ground is strong enough to transfer that load or not. If you have earthquake coming, whether the infrastructure you have is strong enough to cope with that earthquake load or not. And we deal with those strengths.
Tawari was in the Far East earlier this year examining the earthquake that devastated the coast of Japan back in March. He was part of a study group that analyzed data and compiled research to see how that quake could compare to a future quake in Southern California.
Our concern was what was the impact of magnitude 9 earthquake in Japan. We heard more than 20,000 people died, and we are trying to see whether it was due to infrastructure, that is direct effect of earthquake, or due to tsunami, that is the secondary effect of earthquake.
Professor Tawari says soil compromised in an earthquake can lead to a landslide long after the trembler. Tawari says a good example is the Laguna landslide back in 2005, when dozens of homes in Bluebird Canyon were damaged or destroyed. Storms had soaked the hillside during the rainy season, but the land didn't give way until June. David Bowman is an expert on fault lines and has been studying a phenomenon that's not widely understood, yet its effects can be deadly.
How a fault, particularly in a place like Los Angeles, can rupture upward and jump from one fault in one location to another fault in another location. And what that can do is cause several small faults to link together into one larger earthquake.
Professor Bowman says while he's concerned that an earthquake along the San Andreas Fault could sever our lifelines, such as the freeways, gas lines, and water mains, it's actually another fault line that he's more concerned about.
In Orange County, one of the biggest hazards is actually right here under Cal State Fullerton. It's the Puente Hills thrust. The beautiful Coyote Hills that sit behind us are created by a very, very large fault that's very much like the Northridge earthquake fault, and it pushes up those hills that Cal State Fullerton sits at the foot of. And that fault actually runs more or less, it changes names, but it's all basically the same fault system, runs all the way through to downtown Los Angeles. And if it goes all at once, it could produce a very, very large earthquake, magnitude 7.4, 7.6, right in the heart of the urban core of the LA metropolitan area and Orange County, and that would be catastrophic.
Well, if there's any good news, Professor Greg Childers has some. Childers says his research disputes accounts of what might happen to our nuclear power infrastructure in the event of a major quake.
There's been significant overhyping of the dangers from the nuclear reactors because there's a concern in the public about, and there's a misunderstanding in the public about the safety of these nuclear reactors. For instance, the tsunami damage here, the tsunami risk here isn't nearly as large as has been hyped in the media. The San Onofre plant is protected by a 10-meter seawall, and the largest tsunami that can happen is 10 times smaller than that, no more than a meter, due to earthquakes in this area.
This team of earthquake experts will be going around Orange County and other parts of Southern California presenting their findings and publishing articles so the public will have a better awareness and understanding of trembler trouble. In Fullerton, David Nazar, Real Orange.